Hey everybody, it's Mark Pruitt with Strategic Estate Planning Services. I appreciate you being here today. This is another strategic money tip. I'm joined by Mr. Lorne Book of Book Law Firm. I appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'll encourage you guys. This is our fourth segment, and we've done three other segments. We'll encourage you to look at that in regards to basic estate plan documents, whether a person would pass away, what they should have in order, or whether they're living. And then basically another way to how to pass assets efficiently down to your heirs. So we kind of hit on all three of those. But the last one is probably, I think, one of the most important, and it's really the shortest one, and that is reviewing documents, because we have people do this all the time to where I've seen people walk in, honestly, and they've had legal documents drawn up 30 and 40 years ago, and you would think that no way, and the answer is absolutely. And so why is it important, Lauren, that people review these? I mean, as I've stated before, we buy a car, we don't have any problem rotating the tires, getting new tires when we need to, changing the oil. We change out air conditioners. We paint our home. We do upkeep. Mm-hmm. We do it on our own selves. We get our hair cut. We do things. Why is it that people have this stigma of, I've got these documents once, that's all I ever need, I don't ever have to mess with them again? What's the problem with that?
I think there are probably two main reasons that people don't update their documents. One is that, and I feel you on this, death and disability are just not super comfortable topics to talk about.
True.
And the people that you generally have to talk about with them aren't people that you would spend a whole lot of company with. Lawyers, we understand, but they are necessary, and it's necessary to keep them up. I think the other reason is a lack of good education in the marketplace about why a person needs to update their documents. We commonly tell clients to consider, as a rule of thumb, every 2 to 3 years for an update, but three major kind of categories for clients to keep their eye on. So one is family changes. Kids grow up, and sometimes you don't need those minor guardianship designations anymore. People pass away, people move closer. Mm-hmm. All of those people get divorced, new children are born. All of those family dynamics as they change are good times to review your estate plan documents.
Yeah.
Financial changes, lose a job, get a job, buy a house, sell a house, refinance a house. We were just talking before we came on video about the importance of, for our clients that have done revocable living trust planning, to make sure that the funding process has taken place. So funding, why don't you explain just in layman's terms what funding is all about?
Yeah, because funding is what is usually done by a financial firm. You'll have, like we tell people all the time, we can't do the legal side of documents. That's what you have an attorney for. They do the legal side. But on the other side of that, you normally don't see attorneys do the funding side of that. So exactly what is funding? Funding is basically restyling the accounts out of your name into the name of the trust. And so example I always use is the deed to my home. The deed to my home does not say Mark and Della Pruitt on the deed. It says the Mark and Della Pruitt Revocable Living Trust. So that deed has been redone. It has been restyled with our trust name on it. It has been filed with the county clerk's office. They have stamped it. They have sent it back to us. That asset has now been funded into the trust. So think of it like this. When you do documents and you do estate planning documents such as a trust, as an example, think of it like building a house. If you build a house and you close on it that day, so you've closed on it, you got the keys in your hand. What's the very next thing that a person or a family does? They move the assets out of the front yard or out of the van into the house. That's what we're doing, is we're taking assets that have not been restyled into the trust, and we're restyling them into the trust. We're moving those assets into the trust. And it always asks somebody that has a trust, has your documents or has your assets been funded? We know whether they really have or not. They'll say, well, I think they have. If you've ever funded, you know you've done it, because you've had to go to the bank, tell them you want assets restyled into the account, all kinds of things that we show people. And once you do that once, you'll know clearly whether you've done it or not. So usually if there's a hesitation, that tells me they probably haven't funded it. And the best way to figure out if you've not funded is look at the bank account. Does it say just your name on it? Or does it have revocable living trust or RLT or something else, trustees, trustors? Does it have something else on there other than just your name?
Yep. So just to reiterate, funding as it relates to interacting with your trust, a revocable living trust is part of your estate plan. Funding is the name that we give to that legal transfer of ownership or that retitling, tying a revocable living trust to an account in order to make sure that it is properly living within, to use your illustration, living within that house that you've created.
Correct.
So family changes, financial situation. I just want to make a quick note. We were talking about refinances.
Yes.
As it relates to trust funding, refinances are one of the most common ways that we see trusts go from being funded with a piece of real estate
Correct.
to being unfunded. A lot of banks won't refinance a piece of property if it's held in the name of the trust. And so the mechanism is to execute a deed out of the name of the trust into the individual, allow the refinance to close, and then hopefully the client does the follow-up and they deed the property from their individual name back into the name of the trust.
Right.
That's a place that we see disconnect in terms of funding. So family changes, financial changes, and then federal and state tax and estate law changes. You mentioned this earlier about the hypothetical client that maybe did a will 20 years ago.
Right.
Well, 20 years ago, our estate tax exemption was somewhere around $1 million per person. So anything you owned over $1 million was subject to federal estate tax at 40%. That's a big chunk. Well, right now, as we sit here and record this, that exemption amount per person is somewhere closer to $11.7 million per person. Much different tax planning landscape. The Texas legislature has rewritten the codes that support our living documents that we were talking about.
Right.
Financial powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney. Those codes that underpin those statutes have been rewritten multiple times since 2000. And so keeping up with those things is important. Now, you know your family and you know your finances better than we do. But we, at least at our firm, we try very strategically to stay on top of those federal and state tax law changes. That's why we want to make sure that we're connected with our clients so we can communicate via email about when those changes come along. You know, we're sitting here in 2021.
Right.
It's March right now. We have a new presidential administration that, for better or worse, have vastly different views than the predecessor administration about what our estate tax laws should look
Right,
like.
and I'm already getting white papers on that. So, and then we'll actually do some, I think we've already got one scheduled in November to be able to tell people, because we're already beginning to get white papers, which basically this is a prelim to what is on the table up there in Washington. Hasn't passed yet, but I can tell you there's going to be huge changes in regards to tax law, whether it be step up in basis, whether it be long-term capital gains, all types of things, tax bracket changes.
Reduction of the estate tax exemption.
Yes, I mean, the list just keeps on giving. So we'll keep you updated in that regard, but that's another reason to have advisors or planners, is to help you. I'm not into giving the government a love offering, as I call it. I want to give them what I'm supposed to give them, but I don't want to overpay. And so that becomes very, very important. So we encourage you, do a review. If you've got things that are outdated, I know there were law changes, examples, and we don't have to go into the detail for this particular segment, but I know there were law changes in 2015 and 2017 that actually benefit clients. But if they don't have that language in their documents, that doesn't mean they're going to necessarily get it just because it was never included in their documents, because they have old documents.
That's right. The laws change as times change. One easy example of this is we're now dealing with planning for what we call digital assets, right? Which is items,
Correct.
Items that we keep on record on our computer or that live on the internet. And because of federal internet privacy laws, internet service providers security laws, planning needs to address that's one particular example. Planning needs to address the times that we're living in.
Right. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. The bottom line is I would say contact us in regards to doing a review, doing funding. You can easily call us always at 1-800-381-8870. We'll be more than happy to sit down with you and double check your funding to make sure that's happening. If they wanted to review documents though legally to see what needs to be, what may be outdated or not, what's the best way to contact you?
So clients can look us up at www.booklawfirm.com. So it's book like the one that you read, lawfirm.com. Or you're always welcome to call our office. Our number is 214-305-6974. We're located in Carrollton and would love to see if we can help or answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you guys for being here today. We appreciate you for another strategic money tip. Hopefully you found this helpful. Feel free to pass this information down to family and friends if they've got some information that they want to educate themselves on just basic estate planning 101. This video, along with the other 3 that Lorne is involved in, could be a great educational system and good information just to know how to navigate some of this stuff and to make it easier on your family and to have family control versus court control and to be able to pass assets down seamlessly as well. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you. God bless.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Strategic Money Tip. If you have any questions about the material covered in today's video, or you'd like to speak with someone from our team, simply call our office at 1-800-381-8870. Also, while we have your attention, click the link below to watch our latest video. And to see more videos on tips just like this one, make sure to click the logo to subscribe to our channel. On behalf of the team at Strategic Estate Planning Services, thanks again for watching.